I have a friend who recently told me a story that the reason why he got in the kitchen and bath remodeling business was because after he read the E-Myth Revisited, he knew that he couldn't be a technician because he knew nothing about doing remodeling and you wouldn't want him doing remodeling. So he decided this is the perfect business for me because I can't do the technical aspects of the work. And that's sort of like what you're saying about sports clips is you don't want me cutting your hair. It forced you to be a business owner.
Yeah, I read that book many, many years ago, and when I first read it, I thought it was almost the Bible of entrepreneurism, right? But there's some nuances in that, especially his perspective on franchises. The dirty little secret to franchising is franchises have a smaller failure rate than non-businesses, which is what he says in the book. Part of that is because a franchisor typically requires you to have a certain amount of liquid and net worth. And one of the number one reasons all businesses fail is because of lack of capital, right? So once you get over that hurdle, you have that. But the other thing is they don't count a sell of a location as a closure or an end of a business. It's just change ownership. And it's very easy to sell and purchase franchises, much more than a regular business. So as an example, Sport Clips is more of a established brand. So there's not as many real estate A+ location options out there because there's already a Sport Clips in that area right close to it if it's not right there. So we're in the acquisition phase for that brand. And that's a very easy thing to do. Our sweet spot is we like to pay 3.5 times earnings.
Okay.
It's really easy to figure that evaluation out. Tell me what your sales are. Oh, by the way, the franchisor shares it with everyone. And then all you have to do is just tell me your rent. I can plug in everything else in my pro forma. And I know exactly how much money I'm going to make on that location. So then I can buy it, right? And subsequently, for the people that are selling their franchises because they're ready to retire or they lost their passion for that particular business, you're going to get a higher multiple selling your business as a franchise than you are if you're an independent person. So it's a win-win on both sides. The sellers get a better price, and the amount of work that I have to do to acquire a new location is almost next to nothing. It's all in the back office where we're just changing the power from their name to my name. It's the same POS. The only thing I got to do is show up the day that we take it over and type in the new credit card information. So all the credit card money comes to my account, not the previous owners. But it's the same operating policy, same uniform policy. It just makes you can acquire at such a faster, easier rate in the franchising industry than you can without.
Sure. I haven't had much involvement or experience with multi-unit franchising. So I'm really curious to know for somebody such as yourself that has built, has 50 units underneath their umbrella. Tell me about the structure of your company, of Kaiser Enterprises, and what does it take for you to be able to run? Obviously, you're not doing it yourself, or your brother's not doing it, but how are you guys able to run 50 units of franchise locations?
Well, it's a lot of divide and conquer and designated responsibilities within the company. So I believe this in any true situation, there must be a simplifier and a multiplier collaboration. Okay. Now, they could be two business owners like my brother and I. I'm the multiplier, he's the simplifier. But if you're inherently a multiplier, you need to employ a really good simplifier to match you. So what are the differences in these two? It's where you get your energy, where your passion is, and where your eyes are always looking, right? So as a multiplier, as an example, when we're talking about a P&L, number one thing I go look at is the top of the P&L. I want to see what the gross revenue is and how do I make that as big and fat as possible.
Okay.
Brother is a simplifier. He looks at the bottom and says, how can I make that as big and fat as possible? Right. So when we work together, it's an amazing thing. But the franchising industry is exactly that too. So you have the franchisor, they're the simplifier. They've created a process, they streamlined it, they're removing obstacles, right? And then as a franchisee, myself, I'm a multiplier. So I'm going to go out, I'm going to pick a location, another location, another location. I have to hire, I've got to train, I've got to staff all these locations. That's all multiplier events, right? So again, it's a good collaboration there between a simplifier and a multiplier. So my brother and I are like that, getting back to that question. So he'll handle more of the back office and I'll handle more of the operations. I'm a little bit more face forward and he's a little bit more in the office and making sure that we're getting the best deals on all of our vendors, making sure that all the cash deposits are accurate, being deposited every day. those kind of things.
And what, so to kind of expand on that, I'm kind of curious of what your organization chart looks like. Is it just you and your brother and then individual units, or are
Ooh,
there
it's
folks in
you know,
between you?
we have a very thin admin office. We like it that way. In fact, to just give you an idea, for me to double the number of Sport Clip locations we have would require me to take on 4 more relationships and my brother 1 more relationship. That's it. And one of those is an admin person. The other
Okay.
4 would be district managers, right? So I have an assistant, operational assistant, and he has a controller, and that's our office. I mean, I have a wife that handles the HR and payroll, but that's not her full-time job. It's so automated that she can do commissions and bonuses and everything within like 10 minutes because we've created a macro, clicks a button, it's all done, exports right into our payroll company, done. So we've done a lot of that. That's why we have so few people. Like, we're able to actually reconcile all the deposits with a macro. We just download from the online banking. We download from the POS, and it just automatically searches and finds. And if there's any discrepancy, it highlights it and shoots out an alert.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
So you had 5 brands. You now have the 3. You have Ideal Image, we talked about, Oxy Fresh Carpet, and Sports Clips. Jesse, what are some of the specific characteristics of a franchisor you look for?
You know, I'm looking at their leadership team. You know, their culture. Are these people that I'd want to sit across the table from at Thanksgiving? You know, my brother and I went through we went through a lot of discovery days. That's when you go and visit the franchisor. We went through a lot of discovery days. We're wanting to get back into food. We haven't figured out exactly what we want to do, but we miss it, right? It's in our blood, and we want to be part of it again. And what was interesting was we saw a lot of brands that we really liked. We thought the product was good. We thought the brand was good. But then when you start hearing about how they thought about their employees in the stores, it didn't resonate well with my brother and I. Like, they looked at them as a liability and not an asset. Now, I didn't hear that from every single franchisor. There was a couple that actually spoke the same way that Charles and I believe, my brother, that, you know, your employees are actually an asset, and you got to empower them, you got to develop them, and you got to trust them. So we gravitated towards those brands because of the same culture, right? Our ideas of what an employee is and who they are to us was very similar. So those are things that we pick. Now, there's other reasons. There's financial reasons. We can go in that too. But if you're looking at just like an observation at the brand, it's the people in the brand. I mean, franchising is a relationship business.
You hit the nail right on the head, but I can tell based on your answer that you and your brother asked different types of questions at Discovery Day for you to pick up on the observation on how they treated or how they think of employees. In my experience of hundreds of potential franchisees that came through my office for Discovery Day, yes, they cared about the leadership team, but they were so solely focused on themselves, right? As the candidate was so focused on, how do I make this business work? You know, can I financially make it work? They didn't look beyond themselves and the opportunity. Fortunately, I had a very strong culture with my team, and we were very close, and they gravitated towards us because I'd like to think we were very likable people, and they knew we all believed in the same vision. But clearly, most people that come to Discovery Day are not thinking the way you think.
No, and I think that comes from just our almost 20 years of having employees and realizing we can't have all these locations if we don't have great employees that we trust and develop, right? So there has to be some kind of appreciation there. And, you know, Sport Clips is a great brand. They believe so strongly in the stylist behind the chair at every location. It's just a really good vibe. At Sport Clips, right? Not just in my salons, but in almost every Sport Clip salon, no matter who owns it. And it's because at the very top, the brand is so stylist forward and understands how important they are to the life of the business. So I took that and just applied it to every other franchise brand that we've ever been into. Now, the other part of that too is, you know, we have a philosophy in our company that if something happens more than once, we need to put a process to it or a system, right?
Right.
And so the motto is we're going to systemize the predictable so we can humanize the unpredictable. And so it wasn't that we were necessarily asking a lot of questions. We were just listening. And so you're going to have challenges. You're going to have challenges. when you've got lots of locations as a corporation. And when you're talking about those challenges, are you talking about how we need to create a process so the employee doesn't have to worry about it? Or do we have to just, are we saying something like, oh, they don't care, they're not smart enough, they don't, there was a clear delineation between the two. And I heard some that were on one side of the camp, and I heard some that were on the other side of the camp. And I'm telling you, I went hard left to the ones that were all about, we got to create systems and we got to make it so our team can't fail.
Nice. As somebody looking at a potential franchise investment, what are some of the other non-negotiables that you said this franchisor must have this?
Well, I want to know what their marketing plan is, right? Like, do they have an established marketing plan? And is someone doing it that's actually pretty competent? The best thing to do is call and ask other franchisees, are you happy with this? Are you happy with their response time? Are they interested in taking your feedback? Now, here's the problem. I don't want if I'm in a brand, I don't want every single franchisee that I'm a franchisee with having a lot of influence on the marketing director's decisions, because most of us are not that qualified. But we could say, hey, have you thought about this? And at least take it into consideration. Being heard is so important, right? Because at the end of the day, it's our money that we're spending, and we just want to feel good about it, because that's the most important thing. I mean, it's got to end in results without a doubt, but you've also got to be happy with those results.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.